Hello, welcome to Inside the Birds Postgame Live, powered by my bookie. Bet anytime, anywhere, any place, only with my bookie. Well, a few weeks ago, the Eagles avenged their Super Bowl loss by going to Kansas City and beating the Chiefs. And now they know how the Chiefs feel as the Eagles fell to the Niners here Sunday in a rematch of the NFC Championship 42-19. Yikes. I am Geoff Mosher alongside my Inside the Birds co-host Adam Caplan. Clay Harbor couldn't be with us tonight. He will be back on the next post-game show. Adam, the 23-point loss for the Eagles is their worst since their 25-point loss to the Cowboys at the end of the 2021 season. That was Nick Sirianni's first as head coach. You might remember they played backups that day because they had already clinched a playoff berth. So you could very feasibly and be fair to say that this is the worst defeat of the Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts era. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, I mean, look, I look at my notes here, and when they were up 6-0, like this is not good. You can't march down the field. This is a bad sign. You know, those things matter to me from covering this business nearly 30 years. I'm like, you can't move the ball downfield against a great football team. They are great, the Niners. They absolutely handled the Eagles today. We'll get into that in a second. But so just to take an opener and a look at this thing, to go down and move the ball like they did, to be only up 6-0, I'm like, this is not good. This could be a problem, particularly based on the way the Niners play. And then after that, I mean, it's insane the way that they move the football. They got outscored 42-13 after that. That's the buzzsaw that came at the Eagles today.
Yeah, it was a boat race, and it almost felt like last year's NFC Championship game in reverse, especially after Jalen Hurts got knocked out briefly. But that's sort of what the recipe was for the Eagles last year. Got the quarterback knocked out, got the run game going, and then you started to cruise away, and that is what the 49ers did. We're going to unpack this game left, right, center, go through the offense, go through the defense, and sort of also discuss, Adam, how the Eagles really pick up the pieces. As we've said all along, you can't really dwell on this too much because you've got Dallas in Dallas coming up next, and then after that, Seattle in Seattle. So the murderer's row schedule continues for the Eagles, and they've got to get a little healthier as they go along. I want to ask you a big picture question here. I've been thinking about this. Do you think, you've seen this team, you've seen how they've responded? You know, that last year they had a big winning streak after they lost to the Jets. This year they came back with some pretty impressive wins. Is this one easily flushable in your mind?
Well, it's a reality check for the club. I mean, for the coaches and the players, they got out coached and they got outplayed. It's clearly going to be a reality check. And then you got Dallas, who they barely beat in Philly. It's obviously one of the most amazing games we've seen in the recent Dallas Eagles history. But so you move on, and now they got it handed to them. Now they know they know what playing bad looks like. They know what an elite team like the Niners looks like. Now they're going to face the Cowboys, who are not. Let's put it this way: their defense got pretty handled by Geno Smith of all people. So the Eagles know that. That's a good thing for them. For an Eagles team that offensively has been dreadful the last three games. As a matter of fact, they only have 20 points over the last three games in the first half.
Right.
7, 7, and 6. That's not good enough. That's not going to work. Another bad first half performance. The defense collapsed. We'll get to that. So to answer your question, they're going to go in here probably down a little bit, but as we've learned covering this business, it lasts for 24 hours. They'll come in. The tape's going to be bad. It's going to be some real bad tape. I mean, here's the funny thing about this thing. It's not one side of the football. It's both. Both are atrocious on Sunday. You can't sugarcoat. They were terrible offensively. Defensively, they're awful. All of it was bad.
Yeah, that actually segues into my big picture takeaway, Adam, is that I do believe, based on the evidence we've seen in this Nick Sirianni era, that they can bounce back pretty quickly from this. They have to. And I think that's good that they've got two really big games coming up. And now some distance that was bridged in this loss because it keeps them on their toes. If the Eagles are to meet the 49ers again in the playoffs, I feel like you can expect a better defensive showcase if they're healthier, if they have Zach Cunningham, potentially Nakobe Dean, potentially Fletcher Cox not playing with a bum groin, because you saw a lot of runs up the middle. But what really surprised me about this game, and I would think would have to change if they play again, is offensively. Yes, the Eagles might have Dallas Goedert back when they play, but offensively, the Eagles just were not there. You mentioned the red zone early on, and then just all throughout the game, no rhythm, so much off script. Very surprising to see the Eagles offense just from front to back really lack any, and they scored points and they moved the ball, but there was just not really the rhythm and the flow and the poetry that you're used to seeing with the Philadelphia Eagles. To me, if you're going to beat this 49ers team, Adam, it ain't going to be 13-10 in the NFC. You're going to have to score points to beat them.
I'm looking forward to hearing what Cosell and Harbor talk about on Thursday morning, what the tape looks like, because once again, Hurts holds on to the ball. It's either the targets are not getting open, or I know that's for a fact. This season he's got a habit of moving when he shouldn't move or bailing when he shouldn't bail. This has been an ongoing problem. I've been told by multiple people who would know, and this is something that he's got to clean up. He's got to do a better job of it, and the coach has got to get on about it. This is not acceptable. He's got to play better.
Yeah,
He's still up there. You asked, he's still up there, obviously, for MVP. He's played plenty of good football this season, but he's got to clean up his issues that he's in control of. The coaches show it to him. Watch the tape; they show it to him.
Yeah,
not hard to figure out.
Yes. Unfortunately for Eagles and the fans of the Eagles, it was good to see him be able to quickly clear the concussion protocol, get back in the game, and they just have to move on and go from there. It'll be interesting to see what the Eagles championship odds are and if they change. And we did make a big deal. And I guess, Vegas was right in the end of the Eagles being underdogs at home, despite having a far superior record, because the 49ers on this day were the far superior team. So Vegas had that correct. And when we talk about odds, we have to talk about the beauty of my bookie. It's not just about watching games, but turning every second into a potential win. With my bookie, you can stream the games and live bet them, turn any game day into a payday. Are you all ready to up your game? Sign up today. Make your first deposit with promo code THEBIRDS. That's one word, THEBIRDS, for a sweet deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's promo code THEBIRDS, THEBIRDS, to claim your bonus. This isn't just a promo code. It's your secret weapon to get the extra edge on the house. And the best part is you don't need to be a sports whiz to win at MyBookie. You can cash in on everything from politics to your favorite shows and then some. Bet anything, anytime, and anywhere, only with MyBookie. I think you hit this one on the head. We have to start with the Eagles defense, which really, we had some concerns about it, obviously, going in. And Christian McCaffrey was sort of the guy we said, you've really got to be concerned about, not only in the pass game and the running, in both. And he had 17 rushes for 93 yards and a touchdown. And of course, he had 3 catches for 40 yards. He was actually more, he moved the chains more in the run game between the tackles, Adam, for the Eagles, which is not something we have seen a lot. I mean, of course, you have to say, hey, no Zach Cunningham, Fletcher Cox a little banged up, but you've got Jordan Davis, you got Jalen Carter, you do have Nick Morrow. This is going to have to be something that they tighten up if they play again.
Yeah, and look, when they play Dallas, they kind of know what that looks like,
right?
And Dallas will take the kind of runs that McCaffrey had, not that Tony Pollard McCaffrey, but now they see something up the middle, as you were talking about the double teams. The thing that surprised me, we'll find out what the tape looks like, but you could just see a little bit of the double teams worked against the young tackles. And Cox is obviously limited coming into the game. And just understand, folks, I'm not making excuses on this point I'm about to make, but when you play backup players, you're going to get backup results. Christian Ellis out of position, guys diving. Okay, Nick Morrow has been a good story, being that the Eagles cut him to start the season. He should be a 3rd or 4th linebacker for them, not a starter. He's starting. You get past the first level, get to their second level. This is what you get. I mean, this is when you're playing backup players, it's going to happen. It's just because you brought this up earlier. They had awesome comebacks. Hurts willed them almost the past 2 games, and when they had to get the defense had to hold, they were able to hold. But I'm sure they are exhausted in an overtime game. You see the errors of diving and being out of position.
Yeah,
you can't do that with a team that runs so much motion, so much misdirection. And I love the stat that you threw at me before we started this. I didn't even think it was that little. Debo Samuel only touched the ball 7 times. He had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and 100 and some odd yards on 7 touches.
Insane.
It's crazy. Just insane. So I think Greg Cosell made a great point in Inside the Birds pregame live, and I hope everybody remembered it, because if you thought the Niners were in for a long afternoon because their first two drives looked bad and the Eagles had pressure, then you didn't remember what Greg Cosell said. And what he said is Kyle Shanahan is a searcher and an explorer in the early parts of a game. He's all right, Greg said, living with some poor results because he's really not trying to get individual gains. What he's trying to do is figure out how you match up to his formations, his motion, and his movements. So you saw the Niners struggled on their first two possessions, 3 and out, pressure. They were throwing the ball mostly. And then once that they got through that and held the Eagles to just 6 points on their red zone possessions, then you started to see the Shanahan offense start to shine at its best. They started to run the ball. They started to give the ball to Debo. And I really think Brandon Ayuk was their spark plug. That diving catch that he made in the end zone was key, really helped them get things back going. But even in the third quarter, Adam, when they got the ball back and started to move the ball, you saw him come up with some pretty big catches. And that became the issue, is that the Niners had too many weapons for this team to try to defend. And Shanahan, after the first two drives, figured out where he was going to hit the Eagles where they couldn't counterpunch.
Yeah, in fact, he is the best space creator in the National Football League. See, he doesn't have what his protege Mike McDaniel has in Tyreek Hill. Nobody has him. And he's right up there in MVP voting. You have to if you're voting. I mean, you have to consider him. He's doing what we've not seen before. But his ability to create space is just ridiculous. Whether it's Ayuk, who you talked about, who had big plays in the first half, George Kittle seemingly gets wide open, no one even close to him, which is something we talked about in the pregame show. Juwan Jennings is a good third receiver. McCaffrey had the big 33-yard play out of the backfield. McCaffrey, as you were talking about, up the middle. Purdy is such a cool customer. You just talked about early on in the game when, Eagles got pressure on them. That's when they were getting pressures. Hung in there after the first two series, by the way. Finished with a 148.8 rating. He's unbelievable. With the other game, I think he was perfect. I know a couple of them were on Debo plays, but man, he's just, the pressure stat, I kind of laugh at it because if you have two eyes and you're watching, you know that they really got to Purdy after the first two series. They couldn't get to him. They got rid of it. He's anticipation throw. He throws it out there for the pass target to go get. It's incredible.
Yeah, he was really good. But, I got to give Brock Purdy credit. I thought he made some excellent throws. Yeah. But I think we also, and as we go forward, we may talk about this more. Let me just read you some stats before I make the point I was going to make.
Yeah.
Niners, 8 of 11 on third down. That's 73%. If you add that they were 1 for 1 on fourth down, it becomes 9 for 12 in situational football, which is just way too high. 4 for 4 in the red zone. 2 for 2 goal to go. 8.0 yards per play. And amazingly, the Eagles still won time of possession, but maybe that was more from the fourth quarter. But those numbers that I read to you on third, fourth down, average per play really tell the story. And I think this is why I put it on the Eagles offense, because the Eagles defense is not going to be a lockdown defense overnight. It's not happening. We know what they are. They are what they are in the back end. They don't have a lot of speed. We talked about this. They're not overly athletic. It doesn't mean they can't win. Doesn't mean they can't win a Super Bowl. They can keep you in a game, but you got to score points, because this defense, unlike last year's team, is just not equipped to really hang with a team that has that many prolific weapons. They can get some stops here and there, but they're going to give up points. They've done it all year long.
They're very flawed on defense. I've said this repeatedly, and I'm going to say it again. They went to the well too often, and they got taken to the woodshed. I mean, that's what happened. They got blown out. Defensively, as we finished defense.
Yeah.
Again, the lack of what I call pure pressure, couldn't do it. The pressure stats that Next Gen puts out. Basically, if they're near Purdy, he was too comfortable back there. I'm not going to say he was reading a book that comfortable. He was just comfortable back there, and that can't happen.
Yeah.
And by the way, the 2 offside penalties by Sweat, you got to know where you're aligned. You can't have that.
Killer.
It's 7 penalties. Yeah, you
that's not like the Eagles. That's sort of surprising. It almost felt like they were they were a little bit undisciplined. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they got caught up in the moment a little bit, but yeah.
Just to finish off my notes here, they got killed in misdirection. They used Eagles' aggressiveness against them. That was a great job by Shanahan. Phenomenal job. He, as you mentioned, the first two series, I guess Greg was alluding to this in our pregame show, that he's okay if it doesn't look good. He's just going to do what he does. and he assesses how they're playing the front. Now, they had one set I wrote down where they actually had 4 defensive tackles on the field to stop McCaffrey, and he still, I think, it might have got 6 or 7 yards on the play. But they tried some different things. Decides working with a short deck here at linebacker. I mean, this is pretty bad. Even if Shaq Leonard signs, who knows what he has left?
Right.
The Colts, who have a legit shot to get the playoffs, did want him on their football team. That tells you a lot.
It
So
does.
I thought Greg said it very well. He's no savior. Who the heck knows what he has left, even if he signs here? But they need more players at inside linebacker, and they've got to figure out a way. Desai, I know, is challenged because you mentioned you made a good point. He doesn't have the speed on the back end. We've been talking about this on Inside the Birds. Q&A have talked about it. Clay and Cosell have talked about it. You and I have talked about it. Their lack of speed on the back end is crushing them.
Right.
This is just something they're going to have to. They can't address it now. They're going to have to address it in the offseason. They got to get younger at corner. They're locked into those contracts next year. They can't get rid of them, but they've got to get younger corners next year. That'll be, to me, that's got to be pass rushers, edge rushers, and young corners who could run. It's got to happen.
100%. You know, the Eagles did well against Miami's offense and they did well against the Rams. But the one thing that the Niners have that those teams, they have more weapons, more versatile weapons. The Rams don't have speed. They have just good tacticians there in Nakua and Cooper Kupp. Miami has speed. Miami has speed, but, you know, they don't have their offensive line not nearly as good as San Francisco's, and their whole entirety of their scheme is just a tick below. And in fact, if Miami was healthier when they played the Eagles, who knows? You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. But yeah, the Niners really did put it all together. And by the way, props to you. I think you picked Deebo Samuel as the player of the game in the pregame show. Was that not you? Did you not
think so? I thought I picked McCaffrey.
Maybe you picked McCaffrey. That's right. Somebody else picked.
I picked the Niners and McCaffrey, but obviously McCaffrey had a very good game. But
yeah,
but I just want to say this, though, that we're pretty negative tonight. Which I mean, we're being honest. I mean, this is kind of the way we are. We're not homers, obviously. We're just called down the middle. You made a very fair point, which is what I kind of warned people. The Eagles will not. I said to the start of the season, yes, I was picking to get back to the Super Bowl, but they will not be as good. That didn't mean that they can't get back.
Right.
I believe in the staff. They're working with guys on defense where you got to have concerns, but they're very resilient. You asked that question earlier. It's going to be hard on a short. It's not technically a short week. They're playing Sunday night,
right?
But it's just they're working with a bunch of guys out. Hopefully, Goddard returns. We'll talk about offense in a couple minutes here, but it's still right there for the taking. By the way, there's still a game up on the Niners here.
That is right.
Still are a game up here. Okay, so obviously we lose the tiebreaker now, and don't forget, if they're up, if they're still a game up heading to the final 3, they play the Giants twice to the Cardinals. So, folks, relax. It looks bad.
Right.
All's not lost.
I agree with you. All right. Winter time's approaching. It gets darker sooner, and everyone's got to get their holiday shopping done. It's a mad scramble out there. Nobody's at home taking their time planning dinners, eating at the dinner table. No. Everybody needs HelloFresh at a time like this, because HelloFresh delivers farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to your doorstep. No more wasting time in those lines at the grocery store, because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't waste time researching recipes, and we don't have to plan anything out. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. It doesn't get more efficient than that. Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. It's 25% less expensive than takeout, so you get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. HelloFresh has stir-fried chicken, shrimp, steak, risotto, everything you want and more. So go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles. That's 50 Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That is HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. And use the promo code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, we're going to pause real quick also before we get to offense and hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, welcome back to Inside the Birds Postgame Live. Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan. We're going to talk about the Eagles' offense in their 42-19 loss to the Niners. Not much of an offensive showcase for this team, which we're used to seeing move the ball very well. Adam, Greg Olsen on the Fox broadcast said it late in the fourth quarter, but I was thinking it from second quarter on, and you even brought it up. It seemed like every time Jalen Hurts dropped back, he had fairly good protection. There were a couple of times where Bosa is good, and so is Chase Young.
He got in there.
In general,
he
had protection. In general, Jalen Hurts had protection, but
up and down.
He was drifting a lot, and he was getting out of the pocket. It seemed like every pass he made was him running right and throwing on the run. And I have a feeling, the Eagles have good receivers, even without Dallas Goedert. If you look at the All-22, I have a feeling we're going to see that maybe he didn't have to. I have a hard time thinking that Smith and Brown were not getting open, but we'll have to check the All-22 and see.
Yeah, look, we know he's not seeing the field as well as he did last season, but yet you saw the way he brought the team back the previous two games. But if you first of all, let's start with the first quarter. I look at what happened, and I'm like, well, first of all, they were rotating Swift with Gainwell, and then Boston Scott came in.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what their thinking was. Maybe they want to be more physical. It was a more physical runner than Swift because of the physicality of the Niners spring. Maybe that was it. I just thought it was weird. And they couldn't get Swift in a rhythm. I know they couldn't run the ball. I told you before the game it's going to be a throw ball game. As soon as we knew it was going to run, I'm like, this is a throw ball game. I'm telling you it's going to be a throw ball game. 15 of the first 25 plays were throws. There you go. So, and look, they had some success, but not enough. And again, they moved down the field. Travaris Ward's matched up on A.J. Brown, which I thought would happen. When they played man, he had Ward as he had DK Metcalf and did a good job against him in the previous game. And Brown had his way early on. And then after that, they were not as successful. They were bogging down. You mentioned Hurts moving. Yes, Bosa pressured them a little bit. He certainly had his moments. But I just wonder again, when we look at the offense, was it Hurts that no one was getting open or guys were not getting open? I understand Goddard not being there. That's a big deal. But as you said, I have a hard time believing that these guys weren't getting open at least some of the time. The numbers look better, quite frankly, than they really played. They had over 300 yards.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It was kind of a weird thing. It didn't seem like it. And Mariota, by the way, came in briefly, so they had over 300 yards passing. But let's be real, yards are empty yards when you're not scoring. And that was the problem.
Yeah. They were 8 for 15 on third down, which again, that's actually, if you're 50% or more on third down, that's not bad, but your opponent was 73%. So that's not great. And then I think if you're looking for an early turning point as to where things started to unravel, is their second red zone possession, which again, they only get a field goal. Jalen Hurts sacked himself on a play that a veteran quarterback, an MVP candidate, doesn't normally make. I know listen, I love the way he's keeping the play alive. He's trying to point to AJ. If you watch the replay, it does look like AJ's getting mugged in the end zone by, I forget who was on him, but either way, at some point, if it's not going to happen, run, throw the ball away. He kept drifting back, and then all of a sudden, he sacks himself. Javon Kinlaw, I get the easiest sack in the world.
Of all people.
I know, right? I forgot it was.
He hadn't had a sack since 2020. No, Greg Olsen was right. You have to get rid of the football. Hurts is so good generally at saving himself from getting sacked. He just has his second sense. He's just really good at throwing the ball away. That was a bad play. That was clear. When you've got 5 seconds, get rid of it. He knows better. It didn't happen. Right. I just thought they bogged down again after the first 2 series, and it was a portent of things to come. After the first 2 series, they only had 6 points. I'm like, this can't happen. Not against an elite team like the Niners. It just can't. One of the reasons why I picked the Niners to win is they had a lot of things going for them. They're very healthy on defense. You look at their starting 11, which is overall better than the Eagles, and I know some positions the Eagles are better. But if you looked overall, if you matched them up, and obviously the linebacker, they're way better. When you move the ball like that, you have to score. I love the Eagles were running a ton of pick plays today, ton of them. Yeah, they got caught for one of them. Devontae Smith got caught for one of them. But once those weren't working, I'm like, what are they doing here, guys? And they couldn't score.
So that's amazing, right? I'm so glad you said that. They get that pick play, the rub route to A.J. Brown early in the game, and he gets 26 yards off of it. And I swear, I was doing the watch party at the Hard Rock Cafe. I wish you were there next to me, or Greg, or I would that, oh my God, the Eagles are destined to win this game because they finally executed a rubber route without getting called for OPI. It's like an amazing thing. They've had so much trouble with that in the past. They get it, but then as you mentioned, in the third quarter, they're driving and they're doing well. And then that OPI that I think it was on Devontae Smith, that felt like the old style of Nick Sirianni and rub routes trying, it doesn't work. But I tell you, like, offensively, when the Niners went up 21-6, all right, pandemonium breaks loose after that because the Eagles come back, and I thought they've shown this all year. Good response to adversity. They come back, they score a touchdown. Jalen Hurts, it's a 10 play, 58-yard, and Jalen Hurts runs it in for the touchdown. It's 21-13, and then is when the pandemonium ensues, right? I mean, like, they get the ball back, and then a brouhaha on the sideline develops when Devontae Smith gets suplexed by Dre Greenlaw, and then amazingly, although not really amazingly, VP of Security Dom DeSandro trying to break things up gets sort of gloved in the face by Greenlaw, and then they both get ejected, and the broadcast, the whole game has to stop. And I gotta say, Adam, I've told you this before. Covering the Eagles in the mid 2000s was one of the craziest things that ever in a sports writer, between T.O. and then, Joe Banner and Donovan, Chip Kelly. There was just some crazy crap that went on with the Eagles. And then they kind of settled in. Yeah. What happened there with Dom DeSandro and the whole stadium cheering him on, and the fact that it was the most Dom thing ever, that he's getting all that airtime exposure and getting kicked out, was, to me, one of the more amazing things I've seen.
Well, it's funny because you said I had the sound out at the time. You said that they'd mentioned him on the air, and then they've been selling a shirt for the Eagles Autism Drive.
Yeah,
his T-shirt, and it's just so funny that this happens. That he just,
like, no other team's VP of Security gets this kind of exposure.
It's insane. It's funny because you generally, I was talking about this on Fox Sports Radio earlier. Typically, teams, like, they might put the guy's name on the website, but they don't know no one knows who the guy is. Right. This must be the most visible director of security of any NFL team. Everyone in Philly knows who he is. Don was at Penn State for a little bit as a football player. He replaced Butch Butchiano. We know Butchie, and he does a great job. He's phenomenal. And then there you go. But to move this along here, look, it was, they're going to have to pull themselves up the bootstraps. But you know what the cool thing is? Seattle, Geno Smith ripped the Dallas defense apart. So they have that going for me, because you talk about what can they take away from this? Can they rebound? Bland got destroyed. Deron Bland hit another pick. He got crushed. He did his worst game as a professional. They went after him. So the Eagles are going to see this. Now, if Goddard comes back, I know Dallas is great at home. They've been very close to losing. I give absolutely Eagles a shot. Now, we'll see what kind of health we don't know. Because, sometimes you have the pop-up injury. Some guys come in sore the next day. But we'll see who's available. But the bottom line is they got to get Goddard back. They need help in the middle of the field. You can't keep asking Smith and Brown to carry you like they have. And they tried a shot play or two to Watkins. They hit him on a 15-yarder. They hit one. It was double covered. The Niners knew it was coming. It wasn't like they didn't see it 2 years ago when they had a 91-yarder, right?
Right.
but overall, look, it was a terrible performance, both sides of football. Execution was terrible. Coaching needs to be better. Offensively, Hurts has got to be better. He's got to hang in there. They got see what John D. Filippo told me in our interview with him on Patreon over the weekend was, when it's not going well, go back to your openers. Get the ball out of his hands quickly. Force him to make a decision. There's something going on. We'll talk to John this week, and we'll see what Clay and Cosell have to say. But and now Q&A. But he's got to play better. Hurts cannot play like this. Throw the numbers out; they're meaningless. He has to be better, and so do the guys around him. And the coaches have to help him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, and the last point I'll have on that whole Greenlaw thing is that I felt like the Niners sort of eagled the Eagles in that case, because we always say the Eagles always show great response to adversity. At that moment, with Greenlaw getting kicked out, the entire stadium is giving Dom the salute. Like, you could feel the Niners. You could feel like this might be a turning point for the Eagles. They're starting to get things done. Greenlaw gets kicked out of the game. He's a great linebacker. But what do the Niners do after they give up the touchdown? Well, they come right back down the field, and they get, I think that was the 48-yard pass, the little swing pass that became a 48-yard touchdown to Deebo Samuel to go back up by 15. And then at that point, even though in the past we've seen the Eagles come back, I felt that was sort of like point game. You're just not stopping them. So I credit the Niners for showing some resolve there when it started to look like the momentum was about to swing the other way. They out-eagled the Eagles on that.
And I hope they do meet in the NFC Championship and it's here. I'll be
God,
very curious. It would be good. And by the way, Maddox might be back for the playoffs. We'll see, because that was the other good. Dean, I'm not expecting to see him anytime soon. I have no idea if he's going to come back this season. But at least Maddox, from what I understand, has a chance at some point, depending on how far they go. But the bottom line is they got outplayed, they got outcoached. And there's really not much else to say. That we kind of covered it without being able to see the all-22. The thing is, they play Dallas. They'll be up for it. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah, they're a little bit shorthanded. It's not something that's new for them. They've been shorthanded for most of the season with injuries, just dependent on the week. But Dallas is not as good as they think they are. And we'll see what happens Sunday night in Big D.
We will. All right, we're going to take one quick look ahead in a second. I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto, so make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's also hear a word from our great friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, back here inside the Birds postgame live. Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan. We're going to wrap this up. Adam, it's amazing. The Eagles start off 10-1. Now they're 10-2, and we talked about this in the pregame show and all week leading up. Is that you would think a team that's 10-1 has a decent margin of error, but oh no, because now you're looking at Dallas, who you play next week, a loss there combined with a San Francisco win. Who did the San Francisco have? I forget.
Seattle. Again.
Yeah. I mean, literally at this time next week, we could be talking about a tie, right, for the conference, or the Niners actually having the tiebreaker. And obviously, if you don't beat Dallas, then they're tied for the division series. So response becomes very important here. You know, and we, like we said, the Eagles have been good. They can flush it out. But the margin of error with then Seattle up after that is very, very thin right now for the Eagles.
Yeah, in fact, the Niners only play one team with a sub better than 500 record. That's in week 16, I believe, the Ravens. So that obviously be a tough game. The other ones, they got the Rams, though. No, the Rams are hanging in there. Wow. The Rams, with that team, I can't believe they're 6-6. That won't be a cakewalk. But obviously, that's a game they should win. So, look, it's still there for the Eagles. After even getting blown out at home, which is obviously embarrassing. It's only one game. They still have a one-game lead on the Niners. Obviously, they don't want to be tied with them because they lose the tiebreaker. But it's still there for the taking here. It's there. They've got 3 cream puff games at home in a 3-week period with the Giants twice and the Cardinals. I say that about the Cardinals. Somehow they handled in a couple rainstorms.
Who can understand this league, man?
Right. But the bottom line is it's still there for the taking. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think you meant the Lions. They play the Bears next week, and the Lions are only one game behind the Eagles as well. So this is a tight NFC race. Not much margin for error for any team. So the Eagles really do need to show again that their response to adversity is as great as it's been for the last 2 years. They really can't afford to have a downward spiral here. But as we mentioned, those issues in the secondary, they're not going away. So the Eagles offense will have to put this one behind them and come back next week against Dallas, rip-roaring and ready to go. All right, that's going to do it for this show. For Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. You've been watching Inside the Birds post-game live. We'll be back with the next Inside the Birds on Wednesday. See you then.